So because they couldn't get it. All new rails and right. So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that one back.
Between this house and around, I wish,
Yeah. But.
I think everyone in the normal.
Oh, yeah.
All right, if everyone's ready to start. We're still letting people in. Are all, do you guys know if everyone from DEP is here or if they're waiting for anyone else?
I'll check and see if I have. I'm looking through the names right now. It looks like I have a good number of people here. There could be some more joining, but.
Yes. Are we ready to start on your end?
Yes.
Okay, so the purpose of this informational meeting today is to go over if we were to do a drawdown for not this winter, but next winter. Hopefully, if we can do a 4-foot drawdown, like a larger one than the 2 feet that we've only been getting approved. So the purpose of this discussion is to go over what would be expected from DEP for a 4-foot drawdown as far as permitting and what would be done if you were doing anyone was doing a full wall replacement or if it was just repairs, and to answer questions regarding the deeper drawdown than the normal 2 feet we've been getting. So I don't know if you guys have any information you want to start with from DEP.
Sure. Yes. Yep. I'll be happy to.
Okay.
So first, I'm Linda Brunza, and I'm coordinating drawdowns for DEEP. I'm in the Office of Environmental Review and Strategic Initiatives in the Commissioner's Office. And I'm not going to go through full introductions of everybody from DEEP on the call today, but I'll give everyone just an overview. We have staff here from state dams, wildlife, fisheries, boating, and our Natural Diversity Database program, as well as our Land and Water Resources Division. And we're here sort of to listen into your concerns, and what we can't answer today, I'll get back to you through email, through Tracy in the near future. But I do have a short, brief PowerPoint I can share that might be helpful. So would you like me to do that, Tracy?
Yeah.
It says sharing's not turned on, so if we could.
Who is it you want? Who am I on?
All right, I just sent you a request.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to start off with some basic information. Let me go through the slides here. I'm just to start the show here. So basically, some very general information on beach pond. This is what we'll talk about today. The area of your pond is about 346 plus or minus acres. And we'll talk about the difference of volume for a 4-foot and a 6-foot drawdown. I know both have been of interest. And our concerns, which are loss of native vegetation and natural diversity database concerns, your concerns as well as DEEP's concerns on variable milfoil and our recommendations for that. And what's needed for permits, it's going to come from the town. and suggestions for vegetarian riparian buffers for those that might like a more natural shoreline.
Hey.
So here I have, and let me know if you can see my next screen, some comparisons of our volume lost with these two drawdowns. So on a 4-foot drawdown, we would lose 16% of the volume of water in this water body. And we've done calculations at this using a 50% seasonal flow rate, which is like basically we're trying to get what a typical spring season would be. And it would take about 85 days to refill after a 4-foot drawdown. And for a 6-foot drawdown, it's about 23% volume of water that's lost. And again, checking on those, normal spring conditions, it's about 124 days to refill. Both of those are concerning to us because, and of course, as well as it would be to all of you, because we want that pond to be at full pond by April for recreational purposes, and I'm sure all of you do as well. So we'd be looking at just a slow refill or potentially slow refill. Of course, every season's different. These are just averages. But to let you know what it looks like, there's a diagram here with our 3-dimensional bathymetry view of this pond. And our 4-foot drawdown brings you to this orange area. And the 6-foot takes to the light green. So we wouldn't want that 6-foot drawdown. And primarily there's just a lot of natural resources concerns in general with any drawdown. But with something that deep, we'd really be channelizing where those fish can live and survive through the winter. And since deep does do stocking at this pond in spring and fall, we wouldn't want that survival rate to decrease rapidly in a winter drawdown that was that deep. I don't think we'd have enough dissolved oxygen in the water, and it just, we wouldn't have a great survival rate. Not to mention, the vegetation loss, which is a huge concern for deep. So I'll just move on to the next slide. At the end of me, doing all this talking, I'll ask for questions. So feel free to, be jotting things down if you have questions at the end. So again, our pond area at 346 acres. And I don't know if you can see my next slide. Did it change over?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So our refill rate for April 1st, in order to try to get to April 1st, we'd have to start refilling in January. It does mean a shorter window for this drawdown. So if we were to do a November drawdown to allow work to be done in 2026, just kind of figure November, December, and early January is your window to get some property maintenance done. And, in mid-January, we'd want to start refilling. And that's flexible based on, that particular season. We never know if we're going to get a wet winter. This past one was very dry, but the one before that, it was, we didn't get away from rain all winter. So we don't know what it's going to be like for you to get your repairs done or for the, pond to recover. But we're just giving you some general ideas right now of what it takes to bring it back. For that 6-foot drawdown, we needed more time. So about 124 days. And again, that just starts that refill much sooner. We probably wouldn't consider a 6-foot drawdown unless it was critical for our own repairs for our dam repair purposes. But, for any construction or reconstruction of retaining walls, you can do cofferdams to control water in front of your walls. So due to a number of different concerns on a 6-foot, we probably wouldn't consider that. We'd also look at loss of native vegetation, and we do want, the town to consider this as well when they go through to handle permitting. We do have, invertebrates that use the vegetation around this pond. We have a damselfly that relies on this vegetation for its life cycle. We do stock trout and walleye, and we do need those boat ramps to be accessible for those stocking purposes in spring and in fall. We also have some rocky shoreline habitat out there that we like to preserve and we like to encourage. And a lot of retaining walls do deter from having that rocky shoreline, which provides habitat for fish and hiding places, as well as invertebrates, amphibians to survive the winter months. So we're looking at trying to keep that more natural shoreline habitat, but we certainly aren't requiring it. So I'm also going to mention that we don't own the pond bottom. Deep doesn't own Beach Pond. We own the dam and flowage rights. So we would be interested in what's being done there if it were to affect the flow of water, if more walls are being constructed, for example, but we are not permitting the structures that are installed, and those will go to the town for permitting. So we also have natural diversity database species out there. So before this drawdown were to be approved, we would ask for an NDDB review. And this is just for our staff to get a chance to really look at some of those considerations of some plants that they're concerned with in this area, as well as any invertebrates or other species that might be in the area, and to see how a 4-foot drawdown might affect them. They would come back with maybe different recommendations during a drawdown that we would follow. So we don't know what those would be, so that's why we would require that NDDB review. And we know variable milfoil is of concern out there. There are actually 2 general pockets of variable milfoil. DEEP always recommends, an herbicide spot treatment for aquatic invasives in most situations, because drawdowns really don't control aquatic invasive plants as much as people tend to think they do. It can actually open up the pond bottom to allow for a spread of invasive species to hit areas where they wouldn't have when it was fully wet. So we don't recommend it, but we do say for those, especially at Beach Pond, for those 2 pockets where you have some variable milfoil, we would recommend herbicide treatment. And for that, it would go through our state pesticide division for a permit for herbicide treatment from whatever contractor you hire to do so. No other permits would be needed from us for that, unless it was somewhere near the dam where we actually own the dam and we own some land around the dam. But other than that, we wouldn't need to permit those. I believe we may have some state forest property there, and with that, we do own the shoreline on the state forest. So if treatment were to be in those areas, we would have to review those and approve those. And so back to the list here, for maintenance work, we are looking at town permitting, and that's just because DEEP doesn't own that lake bottom. So we would ask the town to make, a full consideration and look thoughtfully at what is being asked for by residents, how much land may be used if you're, for example, building a new wall or something like that. But any permitting is really through the town. And we do have suggestions for riparian buffers. I'm happy to provide Tracy with any information that she can pass on. We are always looking for that opportunity to enhance a shoreline that has been disturbed, like some of this shoreline has. And that would be maybe through some small stones that are carefully placed without mortar. Those areas can be designed to still withstand some of the wave action that you might get through boats or through weather. So that's one of the suggestions we can make in the future if anyone's interested in looking at that. But we're not asking you to remove your current existing structures. We're just asking the town to carefully look at anything new that would be added, or if someone was going to redesign an existing structure and you wanted something a little more natural, that's where it could come into place. And just additional information, there might be some questions on these. Again, DEEP owns the dam and land around the dam and flowage rights, but not the pond or the pond bottom. The town is the authority to approve structures on the pond, and we would ask for some thoughtful consideration, and we may require review depending on if those impede our flowage rights. We do ask that the town contact Rhode Island if this drawdown were to go through for their, consideration, since they are partial owners. And we had a dam inspection in 2023. I think there were concerns about the dam structure. So in 2023, it was adequate. It's going to, satisfactory, sorry. And it's going to be inspected every 5 years. So again, another inspection will happen in 2028. And DEEP has no concerns with dam failure. And Deep will inspect the gate to make sure that it's working properly. So that's something that we can do in the next, year prior to a 2026 drawdown, because I think there were concerns on that as well. So at this point, I will stop talking and stop sharing, but I'm happy to, forward questions. I'll take questions, and as I get them, I may ask our staff to join in if I'm not able to answer at this moment. But also very happy to just, hear your thoughts and go from there. So maybe I can stop sharing. All right, thanks.
If anyone on Zoom has any questions, if you can, you know how to raise your hand or on Zoom, you can do that. And if anyone in here has any questions right now. Chris, online, just got it. Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd also like to get some information on shoreline repair that would sort of accept the energy of the boats and the waves, so that it would sort of disperse the energy. I know there's some different sort of structures that will help absorb energy.
Okay. Yes, I'm happy to send anything along that to Tracy, and she can forward things through if that works.
Okay. Yeah, and another. For the. Sorry, I'm on the train.
Oh, okay.
What was I going to ask? Oh, for the permitting process, would we go through inland wetland first, and then is that enough just with inland wetland, or do we go through a different office?
Yeah, any retaining walls would go through inland wetland.
Yeah.
Okay, so just inland wetland and no other board, right?
Yeah,
Right.
as far as I know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then
That's how it's always been for stuff.
okay.
All right, any other questions?
And then, yeah, I have one more on aquatic weed removal. Like if we have variable milfoil in front of our property, can the residents remove that? That's been, when it's dry.
Without chemicals, you mean like hand pulling? You can do any hand pulling that you'd like to do, or mechanical
Okay.
removal. Chemical treatment does require a permit from our pesticide division, but hand pulling or mechanical does not.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thanks, Chris.
I mean, I should add qualify that with just saying the town may have their own inland wetlands, considerations for hand pulling, or mechanical removal. So feel free to go to the town for any permitting needs on that.
When you say 2026 drawdown, does that mean it starts in November of 25 or November of 26?
November of 26.
Thank you.
We wanted to give a year notice so that if you had to find contractors for repairs, or if you needed to get your permits in, there was time for that.
So that's really a 2026, 2027 timeframe you're
Yeah.
talking.
And this is so that you can, again, assess what repairs you need, line up your contractors, and get your permits in. Because the way the process always went before is there's a required time from like June or like now. The dam drawdown policy gives it like year to year for drawdowns, and we have been constantly denied anyone over like 2 feet. So if in the planning of a deeper drawdown, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't last minute notice for everyone, so that they did have time to get contractors and get your permits in, because it needs to be done through the process, so. This gives everyone time for all of that if the forfeit's approved. I've already put in the environmental study that she was talking about earlier. I've already put in the request for that, so, again, everything's still in the line of the forfeit. So it's not anything that can happen right away for a forfeit drawdown, so.
Right. And Tracy, just to let you know, we do need that natural diversity database review, but I don't know how long the determination letter will be good for. So it may be like, I know you're looking for 2026 and you might have filled that information into it, but you may have to just repeat it next year is all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It will give you a really good indication of what they're looking for and the types of, issues they might want us to address. So it's good to have that information up front now anyway, but
Yeah.
it just may need to be resubmitted to make
No, I
it
did
current.
put for 2026 on the paperwork, so.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
saw that, then that's what it would be for, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long. Sometimes they're 1 year reviews, sometimes they're 2. So if they were to look at it in the next couple of months, they still might only give it exactly 1 year from the date they approve, as just the way they do business. But not to worry because it can be resubmitted next year.
What's the possibility of initiating a drawdown beginning in October rather than November to facilitate more time for residents?
I'm not out of the question. We can just go through some, I'd go through staff on what we could do with that. And due to refill rates, I can see why you would ask that. That's a great question. The only concern on our end is that we get our stocking done. And I guess I would talk to our fisheries division, for 2026 to see what stocking looks like and kind of go from there. It's hard to say for now at this moment what that could do, but we certainly could consider that for time issues. I also want to, because we're doing this so far in advance, to hope that the window of opportunity for your repairs could be within a short time frame, just given the fact that we want to make sure we get to full pond, in spring. So, but we can consider that, sure. Is that more helpful on your end to start in October? Do you think you're going to have a better chance at getting
Definitely.
work done?
I believe so, for sure.
So you're looking, when you say October, you mean October 1st, October 15th, end of, and give me an idea.
Sooner the better.
Sooner. We do have
How
to
long
look
does it
at,
take to empty?
that's a good question. And that's gonna, we would always do a slow drawdown because we want to give critters time to move. We have to actually not, add too much water downstream all at once. So we're never looking at anything that's too quick. But we also need to look at our boating schedule. And of course, we may not know that yet, but there could be, events happening in October. So certain things that we'd have to consider kind of all at once. And people still expect to use all of our state water bodies as long as possible. It's a lot of pressure on water bodies. If we have a nice October like we did last year, people will want to be out there. So we have to consider all of those needs in addition to your own. But if we are, going through that process, I can't say for sure it would happen in October, but I can say that we can look at all the variables and at least let you know why not if we can't do it. But I would encourage any work to be done to happen in that mid-November, early December timeframe, because by then the water level could be down. It won't be down November 1st. It's going to take a little time to get to the level you want. And we have no control over weather. So there's not even, a guarantee we can hit that 4 feet. With some of our wet winters, I don't think we ever hit the drawdown depths that we were looking for in any of the lakes we did. So I could never guarantee it. Also another issue when you're trying to get something fixed and you have a contractor coming on a certain date and we just can't control that. But that can be done. They would just bid up cofferdams. So you know, they have to be willing, and you have to talk to your contractors about, you know, what if it is a wet winter? How do you do it? And they would go over that process with you. So those would be controlled structures around just the area they're working in to keep water out.
Hi, this is Tim Hollister, North Shore Road. Is the decision to finally do this related at all to the replacement of the bridge at the bottom of Forge Hill Road? Or they're just completely
I don't know
unrelated?
anything about that.
Yeah,
No,
no,
it's
it's not
just,
related.
okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that answer.
The bridge work on Forge Hill will probably be starting in April of 26. They're not related at all, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Hi, Angela Shabbat. I have a question, 2 questions actually. Do you know the specific office and the specific name of the person who does the natural diversity database review?
I don't.
It is an office and it'll be assigned to different staff, so I couldn't tell you a specific name.
But
But
what's the department or the office that does it?
it's the Natural Diversity Database. It's within our wildlife division.
Okay.
So there is a form, an online form that's done that the town will submit, and it gets reviewed through, you know, assigned to a staff member within that
Okay,
office.
we just want to make sure that they get the data from the URI Watershed Watch that we've been doing for years and years. Because
Okay.
the reason we keep up with that database is so we have the data to do the drawdowns.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that data gets in there. And then
So
I have, oh, go
once
ahead.
once the communication is you know, sent to someone from that office, there's probably going to be a letter or some kind of communication sent back, and in that letter there could be a name of a contact person. Otherwise, feel free to send anything to me that I could forward on, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, do you know if there's any state grants or funding for people who want to restore their riparian buffer?
I don't know of that. No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to see if there was someone still on from Uncas Health. I know Patrick was on earlier, but I think he had to leave for a meeting, so he might have left already. No. I know, Patrick, from Uncas Health had some concerns about a 4-foot drawdown and it affecting people's wells. Especially if you have shallow wells. He says, there could be some water issues there, and people might want to consider, in the time frame between now and the drawdown, they might want to consider getting their wells checked out to see if there will be a problem with a 4-foot drawdown, because with the way that the droughts have been going and people have been noticing well issues, that it's more than likely going to affect people's well.
I've got a quick question, not that it's of overt concern to me because I'm a Connecticut resident, but has this all been also coordinated with the folks in Rhode Island, or can they come in at the last minute and say, wait a minute, you're drawing down a lake partially of which is in our jurisdiction and we object to it?
Well, we already have a little bit of a conflict with Rhode Island because their timing for their dam drawdowns is totally opposite from DEP's. So that's a problem that I haven't tackled yet. But they do have to, they do have to be notified because they are property owners on the lake. But that's the main problem with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gracie, Bob Layton here. That raises a question that came up, which I was unaware of. It was stated that the state of Connecticut does not own the lake. If the state doesn't own the lake bottom, who does?
Oh.
Well, my guess is it must be the town, but we haven't done that research.
We don't. I thought we were always under the assumption that whoever owns the dam owns the whole lake. That was what we were always told in the past, was when dams are concerned on water bodies. So that's why it was always estimated that they owned it. But if that has changed at any time, and that's no longer the case, then, I don't know who owns it. No one's being taxed for it, so.
Yeah, my guess is it's under town ownership. I don't know that either. We had our land acquisition and management office did some recent research, and we definitely own the dam. That the dam itself was conveyed to us and the land around the dam, and flowage rights, and that was it. So we don't own the pond
I
bottom.
see, Jamie's on, she had.
Yes,
her
and
hand
Jamie
up.
can
She's,
explain better. Yes, go ahead,
she's
Jamie.
land acquisition, so she
Yep.
can explain it.
Yep. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you, Linda, and hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. So for folks who don't know who I am, let me lower my hand here. My name is Jamie, and I'm in the Office of Land Acquisition and Management in Hartford at Deep's main offices. We're basically the real estate department or division for the agency. And I took a look into this, the question of who owns the lake bottom or holds water rights and so on at Beach Pond. And as Linda already alluded to, so yes, Deep owns the parcels which are associated with the dam, and Deep owns the lake bed that's like in front of that parcel, or waterward, the submerged land in front of those waterfront parcels. The state also holds or owns, we own some state forest parcels that are associated with the Patchogue State Forest on the north and the south shores. So we would own the lake bed in front of those. We also hold, the state holds flowage rights that are associated with the dam. And by virtue of our deed, our acquisition deed, how the state acquired the dam parcels, we have water rights, the right to flood 350 acres, so the whole water body. My understanding is that Beach Pond was much smaller, prior to it's being dammed by man, so artificially impounded by a manufacturing company. And basically, anybody living on the shoreline has some legal interest to the land underneath the water that is impounded. And so it's imperative that everybody who owns waterfront property, that they read their deeds and seek assistance from a land use attorney to provide you more insight and information on to what rights, if any, you own to the lake bottom in front of your waterfront. So in summary, the state owns some parcels or tracts of land, including the dam, on the shoreline, and we would own the waterfront or the lake bed in front of those parcels, but not necessarily those in front of private property. It's the onus is on everybody to do their land records research to figure out what, if any, rights you hold to the lake bed. And the state also holds the flowage rights over 350 acres. So that's where we have the right to draw down or fill or otherwise manage and control the water levels. So, just in the case of retaining walls and things like that, retaining walls, depending on how they're built or if they encroach waterward into the water body, it particularly, a cumulative effect. So like after years and years or many, many walls over the years being constructed or encroaching into the lake, it can, over time, impact the state's flowage rights by changing the size or configuration or the depths or bathymetry of the lake. So we kind of keep that in mind when we're considering new walls in particular or expansions of existing walls. So hopefully that helps and sort of makes sense for folks.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or any comments? Yep.
So can we revisit what the state's contribution is going to be for weed remediation? I heard that we could potentially get permits to handle a certain amount, but that's very limited. So due to a lot of boat traffic and the invasive weeds, boats travel through areas, they cut the weeds spread and are a constant challenge to deal with. So we have a given space in front of our properties that we may be able to address that with, although it's really an uphill battle when the existing problem is on other parts of the lake that we don't maintain.
So does the state have any plans for doing any sort of weed remediation or any plans of putting in any type of washing station?
No, we actually don't do weed control on any of our lakes. It is up to the lake owners to request control through herbicide treatment, and that's done by hiring a contractor, and we review, our pesticide division reviews those applications. But DEEP does not control or have the ability to handle pesticide management. So we don't, but we do have an aquatic invasive grant program. So there is the relief as far as funding can go. It is competitive, but it is offered every year, and any town or municipality or lake association can apply for it. So I can provide that information to you, Tracy, for the any future issues you want to address on those.
I believe Patchogue did some herbicide or remediation last year, 2 years ago. Does anybody have any comment on how that went? Did it work, or on the DEP side?
I can ask our staff if anybody has any knowledge of that. We don't have anyone here from the pesticide division directly, but maybe anybody from fisheries or anyone? Robin?
Sorry, I just want to go back a little bit. Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Blum. I supervise the Natural Diversity Database Program. And just in talking about the two different potential project activities here, the lake drawdown versus chemical control of invasive species, I just don't want you to be caught off guard. Each of those will require a natural diversity database review because they are two different activities. So a drawdown could affect a listed species. That is a different activity that could have different consequences for a listed species than a chemical interaction with that species in the water. Now, you can certainly combine both of those in one application, but if you choose not to, if you just submit for the drawdown, you would not be able to then use that to demonstrate compliance with the Endangered Species Act when you apply for a chemical pesticide permit. They're two different activities, and they would function vastly differently in their potential to impact listed species. So I don't want anybody to get caught off guard. So I just thought it would be helpful to make that distinction up front.
Is there a window of time for the herbicide use? Does anyone know? Or it cannot be done like all year? If we were to do
No, that's going to be driven by the plant biology of the invasive species. It's got to be treated at a certain point in the plant's life cycle, and there's some variation to that depending on the target plant that you're looking to treat.
Yeah, usually that's going to be a early spring or mid-summer treatment, and I forget what berry milfoil is.
Me
But
too.
yeah, but in any case, the contractors you hire to do that know that stuff inside and out. So they will be submitting based on the time of year they need to treat. So back to the Patchogue Pond question. Does anybody from Deep have any information on herbicide treatment at Patchogue? I can try to go back to any files I might have, but I'll see if I can find out something. Okay, I'll see what I can find.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. I have a lot of boat registrations, and on the registration, it says weed eradication.
That's the grant they're talking about.
Well, we don't get any of that money.
Well, that's what we would have to figure out. That's why I was asking about the time to treat the weed, because we would have to figure out, how much it would cost, how much the grant is for, how much it would cost for the project, when we
I mean,
would
as
do
far as
it.
I'm concerned, we're paying this fee on all our registrations. I have quite a few registrations.
Can I just interrupt on that, just for clarity on that? That aquatic invasive species stamp is no longer associated with the DMV registration, and you'll need to purchase one before launching your boat this spring.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get the word out there.
Registration.
She said that
They did, no.
she said that the weed fee is no longer included in the DMV registration. You have to buy a separate stamp now.
And where do you get that?
Where do you get that stamp? Well,
I don't know. Yes.
So it's associated now with our sportsman database, where you get your fishing license or your certificate to operate.
Sorry, we missed that.
You can purchase the stamp or the decal. It's on the sportsman database, the same place where you go to get your certificate to operate a boat or get your fishing license.
and was that one per boat you need?
That's for the boats that are operating in inland waters, only motorized boats.
So it's $25 per boat. Correct.
$25 if you're going to have multiple operators, or I think it's $7 for just an individual.
Per boat.
Yes.
Yeah, and that includes jet skis?
Yeah, what about jet skis?
That includes jet skis.
And the people that come from Rhode Island with all the jet skis?
If they're going to be boating in inland waters in Connecticut, they're required to have the decal as well.
Is there someone who will enforce this?
It's enforceable by our NCON Conservation Police Department.
Then forget about that.
Well, just to confirm, you're saying that you need to have a decal and you need to purchase the permit?
The decal is for the vessel. So if you're going to have multiple operators, then the $25 decal I'd put on your boat. If there's only going to be one operator, then you can just purchase the $7 for the individual operating the boat.
Understood.
Did anyone have any other questions or comments or any last remarks?
Tracy, I have
Oh, yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
I appreciate your effort so far with this project. I would like to know if while we're doing this, can we set it up so that this can be something that, you know, rather than reinventing the wheel, or can we do this every 2 years, or can we have a period of time where we, you know, have this continual? Can we do it a couple times?
That would be a question for the state as to how often they would do a deeper drawdown.
I would guess at this point, we're looking at this one-time effort. If you, you know, normally we've done, I think 18 inches there, maybe up to 2 feet. So that's a drawdown we probably could continue as annual drawdowns go when we get our requests. But this particular 4-foot drawdown would not be something we would recommend on a regular basis. And it's truly should be need-based. Like you mentioned, Tracy, in an email to me, there might be 20 plus, you know, people needing to do work on their properties, 20 properties. So for that, that does make sense to do this. But, for future issues, individual areas that need to have some type of work done, we would just recommend cofferdams. A 4-foot drawdown is really detrimental to our natural resources on this site, and it would require this type of effort every time. And there may be different people here at Deep doing it, so it still requires this type of effort. And I wouldn't want to commit to something like that at this point.
And the other reasons why the smaller drawdowns were not done was because if there's another pond lower down that's doing a drawdown up in the system, it's not good to do another one at the same time. So in the past, like last year we did Beachdale had a drawdown. I think the year before that, Patchogue or one of the other.
That almost supports Andrew's question. If there's multiple bodies of water that require drawdowns, why not get it on a calendar schedule so that everyone is fully aware? Because traditionally, if there's a drawdown, there's little or no notice. And then I know there was comments about the state's concerned about weather and this and that. To get contractors in to do things, weather is a factor too, especially if you run into December, January to pour concrete, not always ideal.
Well, I mean, certainly that's an opportunity for all of you, for the town to work through as well. You have Beachdale, so I think like Tracy mentioned, one year we did Beachdale, but we weren't going to do Beach Pond in the same year. So that's something to consider in the future. These could be alternated between Beachdale and Beach Pond. Patchogue Pond was, we really did a huge dam replacement. So that was maybe 2 years ago or so. We're in 2025, so maybe 3 years. In any case, that took quite some time and quite some effort, and we weren't doing drawdowns along the chain during that time. So that was not approved during that year. So I know you may not have seen this for a while. And I think last year we looked at just the deep drawdown Tracy had requested, but we couldn't move that forward without, all of this taking place first and us getting a chance to talk to you. So, I think it's just been one of those things that hasn't been able to happen because of several different reasons. But moving forward, I would ask that, maybe you look at Beachdale and Beach Pond and figure out how to alternate. I think we can handle both of those drawdowns, even when we are doing a drawdown within the system. We already alternate between Patchogue Pond and 3 others. So, and we do a 3-year rotation. So, something we can consider doing with these as well.
I did have a question from a resident whose property is downstream of the dam. And they were just wondering how the drawdown, the 4-foot drawdown would affect downstream.
And that's something we have to consider when we do all of these drawdowns, and we don't know the effect downstream. It's truly important to figure that out. We aren't the ones that would investigate that issue because we don't own that property, but we would ask that as you notifying your neighbors and the area of this drawdown as required by the drawdown policy, that you look at that drawdown, down the receiving waters. It is something that our state dams office may take a look at, but we aren't, we are going to factor that in when we consider this request as we do all other drawdowns to see what it might do downstream. And that is why we'll have a slow drawdown. We don't want to release too much water all at once. And of course, weather's
overlap between the drawdown and the bridge construction too, and the bridge right at the downstream. It's supposed to end like in November or December of that year, maybe. So there might be a little bit of overlap on that too. So.
Yeah, that's something we should consider. If you are working on a bridge reconstruction, we probably need to know more details about that before we go through this approval process to see what that entails on your end.
I know that I guess you have to have the dam inspected periodically under state
Every
and
5
maybe even
years.
federal law. With this drawdown, are you going to also inspect that dam? Because you'll be able to see areas ostensibly that you wouldn't be able to see normally without such a drawdown. Are you going to inspect that dam again?
I mean, I can reach out to state dams to see if they will. It would be on a schedule for 2028 because they're 5-year inspections. And they do require quite some effort on DEEP's part to do in a dam inspection. It's not, you know, we have, what, 4,000? Feel free to correct me. State dams, a lot of them. So, you know, it isn't just because we're doing a drawdown. We do drawdowns on many dams. Not many, but several year to year, and we can't get out there to inspect those. So I don't know that for sure, but I certainly could, you know, reach out to state dams if they want us to look at it during that time.
Yeah, it makes sense if they could, obviously, because you're going to be able to see things a lot better with the drawdown than you would otherwise.
This is Ramona Good from State Dams. I think that's a good point you bring up. You know, as Linda said, this dam is not due to be inspected to 2028, but we can always inspect it earlier if that's going to happen to help us see what's happening with the drawdown.
Thanks, Ramona.
Any other questions? Yeah. Are they aware that Beach Pond is spring fed? And also the average depth is somewhere between 10 and 15 feet. It could be more than that. You probably have the answer about the average depth. And previously, when we've had drawdowns, the lake has risen quite fast because of the springs. Is that a consideration?
It certainly could. We are using some, you know, not necessarily very conservative measures to determine refill rates, but we look at 50% flow rates and 50% seasonal flow rates for spring to try to get like the average amount of water that could be coming into that watershed. And that's how we do our calculations. It's not written in stone that it's 85 days or 110 days or whatever it is. It could actually be more if you have a dry winter and you have a dry spring. So there's really no, you know, perfect determination, but we're trying to be conservative in this approach, and using 50% spring flow rates seem to be the best way to determine our refill. Just overall with all of our dams that we draw down, it's what we're using. But, you know, of course, there's winters that are wet, there's springs that are wet, and things can refill very quickly, and it may not be an issue at all. But we want to be sure to have a full pond for recreational purposes ready to go.
Can I revert back to something Yolanda had indicated before regarding that AIS stamp? I'm looking at my vessel registration that just came in for 2026, or 2025 through 2026. Included in your registration, they included a card to be able to scan to get your AIS registration. So apparently you can do that. If you look at the registration for the boats, if you got one on the pond, they should have included a card for you to be able to obtain that particular stamp by scanning it. And apparently there's a cost of $7, like she said. But that was in your registration if you registered your boat already for the coming year.
Does that stamp apply for Rhode Island boaters or out-of-state boaters that put their boats in the pond?
Anybody that's boating in inland waters has to buy the stamp.
Regardless of whether they come from Rhode Island or Massachusetts?
Correct.
Thank you.
How are they supposed to know that they need that stamp?
We might.
They have Rhode Island registration.
Yeah, because if they're entering the pond on the Rhode Island boat launch, they might not know they need the stamp to go on the Connecticut side. So maybe that's something I can let DEM know, that they might want to post that.
So I'm not personally involved in the outreach of it. I manage the boat launch in Connecticut. But we can work with Rhode Island in probably getting some signage up at their boat launch there.
Yeah, because that's one of our biggest issues is there is a boat launch on the Rhode Island side, and so people coming in on the boat launch on the Rhode Island side don't always know that they're entering Connecticut waters and that some things might be different. So
understood.
And they usually come and wash their boat off at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen people running boats in there that are too large for Beach Pond, probably washing out their bilge and then leaving after about 5 minutes.
Well, it's usually flushing out the salt water with fresh water, and which is allowable.
What is the penalty for not having the AIS stamp or decal?
We have people here for the drawdown, so they might not know all the answers to the other things. Oh, unless you want to know.
I don't know offhand. Let me find that out for you.
All right, we'll take another question. I see Chris's hand's up, but we're running out of time as well. So Chris, if you have a question, I see your hand up.
Yeah.
We can't hear you though. We can't hear you, Chris. If you have anything, you can send me an email as well, and I'll pass it on to DEP. But we can't hear you, Chris. Yep, one last question.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. No.
Okay, so
Sorry. No, we can't hear you again. No, not hearing you.
Just quickly, it's $85 if they find you without the AIS stamp or decal.
Okay. $85. Chris, if you want to send me an email, I'll pass it on. And we have one more question in here.
Is somebody that has information about the AIS involved with this drawdown, or is that that's a different department?
I can't remember what AIS is.
The invasive
The species. That might
It's
be
actually a committee that handles the AIS grant. Parts of the committee are run by DEEP staff, so some are from fisheries and other areas within our division and land and water resources as well. I don't know that anybody on that is on this call today, but I did send a link in the chat for our the aquatic invasive grant, if anybody wants to take a look at it. And feel free to reach out with any questions. I can always, forward those questions on and see who can answer this for you.
And to let everyone know, we do have a beach pond page on the website, and any information I get, there's a list of links on there. I'll put on there, and it'll also be probably put in the newsletter.
The reason I asked that, I would think like the milfoil is, and now there's questions of when to treat the milfoil, but we'll, at the 4-foot drawdown, we're gonna be able to walk up to this milfoil. It's gonna be right in front of us. So if it,
2 foot.
I think they're doing,
We're
talking
talking
about a
about
4 foot.
4 foot.
They're talking about a 4 foot. So if we could tie somebody, get that information, if we could just treat it right in front of us, if they do get the 4-foot drawdown, I think they should have somebody involved with the weeds, the troubles that we're having at this time.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would reach out.
Yeah, that's what they.
Right, but let's get somebody that can tell whoever the weed specialist is, let's get them involved with the drawdown. And it would make sense if we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You mean with
Typically,
herbicide?
these are different things to work with. They're not treating invasive aquatic plants during the winter months because it doesn't take in the treatment. It's during that spring when they're actually, getting ready to come out and grow is when they take in the chemical treatment, and it kind of stunts growth. It works in the cellular structure. So it isn't something that we would do in the winter, but feel free to reach out to whoever, you'd like to talk to about herbicide treatment and, get a better sense of what they say to do. But that's typically not how it's done. It must be
Is there a
done
list of
when they're
approved
growing.
products for use?
Yes, of course. There's quite a lot of approved products, and any contractor would know which might be best for your
Do you have a
pond.
list of contractors?
I can't recommend anyone, but I can, lead you to a direction and let you reach out. It's always, good to get several quotes to figure out where to go and who to go with. And, we have maybe, several companies within Connecticut that do this. Some are in Massachusetts that work in Connecticut. But, you know, I'm not allowed to recommend anyone, but I certainly can try to reach out to, or to provide you with some information.
I don't, it was refused. Yeah, the residents, I think last year or the year before had tried to, hire someone to do, pulling of the, like a machine pulling of the weeds, and they said it got denied, so.
Yeah, it didn't. And I think I mentioned this to you, Tracy. I am on, at that time, I was the only person that they reached out to. And I know the company you're referring to, he wanted to do some mechanical removal on several of our state-owned lakes. But I'd asked him to reach out to Natural Diversity Database and get the review done, and he never did. So it never got denied on my end. It was never fully submitted. All I got was a list of the ponds that he wanted to work in, and I let him know which ones needed an NDDB review, and that's as far as it got. So I don't know what, you know, communication came to you after that, but it was not denied. So in any case, you know, that's still an option. And it wouldn't require an herbicide or pesticide treatment permit from our division. So it would require, well, actually, you know, I can reach out to Jamie on this. It might not require anything from DEEP at all, just from the town. So since we don't own the pond bottom. So the town, inland wetlands would probably permit this. But I would say definitely it's worth reaching out again.
Well, thank you everyone for your time. And again, if you have any more questions, you can send me an email and I'll pass them on. And I'll also, any information I get, I'll put it on the website and make sure it gets in the newsletter. So it'll be available to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.